Welcome to Pros and Cons, a show about a variety of topics. I'm Jack.
And I'm Kev.
Let's talk about the alphabet.
Yeah, not Alphabet City, home of many homeless people. Or used to be. Not anymore, I guess, but...
Is that even still around, technically? Like, I never hear it referred to as that.
I don't think so either. But I'm a California boy now, so... I wouldn't know. No, I'm playing. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think many people use that anymore.
But yeah, so we're talking about the letters within that, the alphabet, the English alphabet. 26 letters, A through Z. Do you think 26 is like a good number? Too small, too big?
It feels like a random number.
Like, who created this?
Yeah, like, why 26 and not 30 or 20? Because, I mean, we'll talk about them, but there's some useless letters out here. I don't know. Some look cooler than others. We'll get into that.
But yeah, I mean, we might as well just jump into the A through Z, hit them up one by one.
Let's get it cracking. The letter A. A as in asshole or apple. I'm sorry, parents, if you're listening, but the George Washington of letters, bro. The first of the first. And again, this is questionable because who made the order, you know? Like,
I feel like it makes sense that it's first, though. It's such a powerful letter that's used all the time. And even just visually, at least uppercase, lowercase is a little wimpier in a way. But the uppercase A, no matter how you kind of draw it, is like a very powerful kind of letter.
Yeah, it's like a sturdy stance. Like if you look at a capital A, it's almost like, you know, when like a woman or like a lady, a mom, just like stands, hands on like her hips, like she's mad at you. It's like a stance, you know, it's just like sturdy. It's very balanced, very symmetrical in a way. It's just very few flaws in it, you know. Yeah, when you make it a lowercase, becomes iffy. People do it differently, you know.
It's just a lot softer.
Yeah, it loses all its character, you know. Like, what have you become?
It might be one of the worst lowercase letters.
Wow.
It's in my name, so I'm used to writing it. And I don't think it's like that great a lowercase letter.
See, this one's interesting because like, I think there's two ways you do it, right? So you could do like circle with the line on top, almost like a letter 6. The little
arch.
Or people do like the circle with like the line down, almost like a comma next to it.
Which is what I do because it's just faster.
Two very different things. I think of like when you see other languages, right? Like Japanese or like that crazy Asian writing, right? And supposedly like every little line is supposed to be exact because it could be super different. Imagine like someone learning the language or, you know, that they don't use like the alphabet and they see that. Someone will probably think like, yo, that's a completely different letter. Obviously when it's lowercase. But I don't know who comes up with shit like this.
A is also one of those that can be said as its own phrase. I mean, it's spelled out when you do it in a way, but like A...
I mean, that's always a plus. Would you say that A is like the most used letter?
I'd say it's like probably top 5. That's probably, you know, grouped in along with the vowels.
Right.
I think that for names, it's pretty good. Maybe not as good as like certain other ones, but I feel like it's better used in the middle of a name versus to start a name. But that's just one aspect. I still think overall it's a solid to heavy pro and probably leaning closer to heavy pro.
It's one of the strongest starts in anything. The letter A in the alphabet. It's an easy pro in looks, in sound. Lowercase could use some help, but it has too many pros on its side.
Next up, we got B as in bodega.
Strong. I can't hate on that. Bilingual, okay. Cultural. Strong word right there. But yeah, B, just like A, could be used on its own in many different ways.
Yeah, multiple ways.
Because B, you know, like BE, kind of the same sound, but technically it's the letter B. You know, New York lingo. What up, B?
Yeah.
AB, look over here. Scud B.
Hey, B, you see that?
A little outdated, you know, if it's still using B. You're probably in your 40s, maybe late 30s. But respect, very hip hop, you know? A lot of people grew up saying that.
There's also the animal, the bee.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking like that. Straight up, bee. Damn, that's kind of strong, yo, when you got like a whole ass bee save the world. Oh, my God. I mean, we got a strong contender for like best letter on the alphabet right here. Yeah, very few bad things to say about this word, too. I feel like it looks good. Lowercase, if there's a little bit of a problem here, is I feel like children go through this problem. I still kind of go through it. I don't know if I have dyslexia, but a lowercase b, very similar to a lowercase d.
Yeah, they're like twins, basically.
Twins?
They're literally flip 180s of each other.
When they're lowercase, obviously.
I feel like visually, it's not the most interesting letter, but I would put the uppercase above the lowercase again, because it has a nice symmetry to it, and I don't know, it has somewhat of a strong presence in a way, but it also feels like a little bit of an oddball, so it's like a cross in between. As far as like a name, I mean, it's from my middle name, Bloom. I gotta rep it partly.
It's a tough job to follow the letter A, so I don't know, I'd go with a light pro.
I'd probably give B overall like a, I don't know, light to solid pro.
Then we go on to the letter C, as in calendar.
I thought you were going to go with California.
California's a pretty good one. Didn't think of that. But yeah, the letter C.
C is weird. It's used, I feel like, more than you would think. And it's used to start some words, and sometimes it's like a enunciation thing. And sometimes it's like a connector within other names, even like Jack with the CK. CK is often a thing. No Calvin Klein, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like C is kind of weak. I'd probably lean towards like a light con.
Yeah, C is weird because it's one of those multi-purpose. Like it has a hard sound and a soft sound. So it can make that cut. Or that C, like Cindy, you know, starts with the letter C. It's one of those like, yo, again, who's in charge here? Like, let's get it together.
And visually, it doesn't look great either. It's just like a not even full circle, you know? It's like a tease.
Sounds like the letter C right there, yeah. It's part of its character. Bam. But
wait, let me ask you something real quick. That just made me think of this. Should C not exist because K exists?
Or the letter S. You know what I mean? So it has the K sound of the letter K. And it also has the S, like Cindy, that you would get from the letter S.
Right.
Again, I said earlier, there's some letters here that have very little purpose. C, like let's say there were budget cuts on, like, I don't know, the alphabet, and we had to cut 5. C is one of those that logically you can cut. Because
yeah, and even in budget cuts itself, you could just put K for the C.
Yo, exactly. And that would be like a hood ass, you know, yo, budget cuts. You know what I mean? But fuck yeah, I think we found like our first letter that we can possibly take out and have 25. Maybe there's other ones here, we'll get to them, but it's also the first letter, I think, that it looks the same, capital and lowercase, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I give that a pro, like that idea. But yeah, I don't know. Now, I think I just convinced myself that we don't need the letter C. So I'm going to have to go with a light con.
Let's move on to D, as in dead.
Dead ass B. Okay. D is solid. It's pretty much like an enhanced version of like the bottom half of the letter B or something. This where you're gonna start to see a pattern.
Is D better than B though? I mean, you're also biased because, you know, you got it within your name.
Kev DLS, if you know me. I mean, it's part of the name. It is strong. I stand by it. It just has a stronger base under it. You know, it's D. Like it.
I don't know. I might say the opposite for that part specifically. It feels a little lighter in a way. But maybe that's also like a psychological thing because B has like the double to almost reinforce the foundation of it.
Oh, I see what you mean. But it's very, again, they're like siblings, B and D. It's like one and the other. They coexist.
So would you put it below B then? Because we gave that a light pro.
I'd put them very similar plane. I'd give it like a light pro, or maybe like a light pro.
Definitely kind of barely passing. Kind of like how it is with your grades, right? You get a D. You didn't fail, but it's not a great grade, so I feel like that kind of matches up.
Let's move on to the letter E, as in ecstasy.
Yeah, just like pure delight. No drug reference or anything.
Drug-free since 93, baby. There was at least 6 E's in that sentence.
Did you say that because it's another example of the letter representing itself,
Didn't even think about that, but hey. I mean, this letter's just too strong. Also, the second vowel.
I feel like it's the second strongest letter we've run into so far. It's just used all the time. Looks good, both uppercase and lowercase, in my opinion.
Did you know that the letter E is actually the most common used letter?
Oh, damn, it's number 1?
It's numero uno, bro.
Yeah, I would have probably put that in A neck and neck, but not surprised.
Yeah, it's 1 and 2, but E, according to the Oxford English Dictionary and I guess how frequent it comes up, it's used on 11.1%, and A is on 8.4. So I got a nice little lead. Surprised to hear you say, though, that you like the design of E or how it looks lowercase. Because it's like the letter C, just with one extra line. And you didn't like the letter C.
I guess you could say that, but like I said, C to me is like a tease. It's not a full circle. Whereas E, it has almost like a personality to it.
Wow.
It just feels more lifelike.
It is also part of my name. I guess I also use it more frequently than I thought.
Yeah, it's in my last name too, and I think it just works as a common letter, so it's functional, but it also feels kind of light and fun too. I would give it a solid to heavy pro, probably.
Yeah, that's a solid pro for me, for sure.
Next up, we got F, as in Funkmaster Flex.
Oh my god. Yeah, I wasn't ready for that one. I mean, strong. Again, cultural, out of this world. I love it. However, I don't know if I fuck with the letter F, you know what I mean? I don't know if I F with the letter F.
Hey, I mean, that's another use, of the letter standing on its own.
F, for sure, one of them. Also profanity.
I feel like it's also on that topic, other curse words, they don't define the letter like F does with fuck.
Yeah, not that it is for sure the easy one to think of. It's almost universal, Not that everyone speaks English, but you get the point. I'm just not a fan of the look of it.
It almost feels like a E that got chipped off, you know what I mean? At least with the uppercase.
It's like a E.
Damn, it got hit by a car, then it turned into F.
It just doesn't feel like a finished project. It's lazy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Really, the letter right after E is just the same thing with a missing piece. It's one of those where before we obliterate it, I'll just take a redesign. Because there is use for it. If anything, using PH is just a weird
extra
thing. Yeah, that's extra. Yeah. But not the biggest fan of the actual letters, so I'm going to go light con.
Yeah, I feel like it's just rarely used in general, or at least it kind of goes unnoticed, even when it is. And in terms of names and stuff, it's kind of rarely used also. I would put it very low on the totem pole. I don't think there's enough there to pro it. It's not terrible. I'll probably go with a light or very light con. And kind of like we talked about with D, if you get an F on your test, you failed. It's not a great letter to have.
Flunk. I hated that word.
So F gets an F.
Then we have the letter G, as in gargantuan. Is that a word?
Yeah. I think I've heard that one before. Not often, but...
trying to bring knowledge and expand your vocab out here on this podcast.
I mean, when you're teaching vocab, maybe we should just expand this to kind of English learning in general. with one of the wise quotes from Sir Little Wayne and go with real G's move in silence like lasagna, a key part of our educational system.
This is a little row of letters I'm not the biggest fan of. G, visually, top 3 weakest in my opinion. There's no symmetry. There's smooth loops and circles, but also sharp turns.
Yeah, and almost like an arrow at the end, depending how you draw it.
Yeah, like what happened? There's 2 mixing styles here. Not a fan. I think I like the lowercase g a little better. It's just a circle with a hanging, I don't even know, line that hooks around a little bit. You could stylize it a little bit more. But I don't even know that I use the word G much. I feel like it's mostly at the ending of words or somewhere in between, you know?
You mean you're not greeting everyone like, yo, what up, G?
I'm not one of those. I mean, I do work with a few people that love to say that.
Because, I mean, it is like B. It can be used like that, but...
Yeah, true. I didn't even think about that one. It's also used that way. Or, you know, that's worth about a G. Kind of strong.
Yeah,
low
that's
key.
true.
I didn't even think about it that way, too. When a letter is used for money as well, it's kind of strong. But it's just hard to look at.
I feel like it's also one of those letters that, kind of like we were talking about with lowercase a, it can be drawn so many different ways, which I think hurts it. And this is both for uppercase and lowercase.
It's also very close sound to what the J makes. You can argue G, I don't know if we need it very much.
Yeah, I mean, J couldn't fully replace it unless we, as a society, kind of agreed like J is one of those letters, kind of like C currently has, where depending on its use, it can change sounds. So if we use that logic, maybe you could scrap G entirely and put J. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to go with a neutral, maybe. Neutral to light con.
Light con for me.
Then we got H, as in hallelujah. You know, got to balance out the vibes here.
Wow. I mean, so far you're winning with your word choices. I gotta say, it's one of my favorite looking letters when it comes to, I don't know, uppercase or a capital letter.
And it's also kind of similar to A. Like, it's just not touching at the points. It's just too symmetrical on the side. But it has that kind of strong stance like an uppercase A.
Strong stance, but simple, you know, like 3 lines technically. There's a few letters in here that could be designed by Apple, and this is one of them, you know? I mean, good to look at. However, on the con side, it's one of the letters, or maybe the letter that gets silenced the most, quote unquote. You know, you mentioned earlier PH for the F sound.
But with that, it's almost like joining forces to create a sound in a way.
True. It like needs help, you know?
Or you could say it's the helper, but it depends how you look at it. But it is very soft in general.
It's
though.
soft, it's delicate. You would think it's, I don't know, German, you know, like loud. Like just strong. It isn't, but I guess I just really like the looks of it, and just for that I give it a light pro.
Yeah, I feel like that disconnect that I just mentioned with kind of how it looks versus how it actually is almost makes it an even bigger con for me. And I feel like it can be sneakily helpful, but I'm going to go with like a light to solid con on this.
But let's move on to the letter I, as in iPhone, the greatest invention to mankind.
Yeah, there's no I in team, but there is in Apple products.
We've mentioned before about letters being used as the letter, as a word. I has to be the strongest, right?
Yeah,
You're talking about yourself here.
Yeah, and it's not like representing something kind of as like a abbreviated version. It's just I itself, me, and even the visual to represent with that, just one solid line. I mean, it can be also with the lines on top and bottom for the uppercase, but it could also be just one solid line, like a person, like such a great visual representation of an individual. And even the lowercase I is just great. Probably one of the best lowercase letters out there. And then you combine that with the fact that it's another vowel that's just used constantly, has a lot of great ways it can be integrated. And yeah, I mean, I have to go with the heavy pro for I.
Yeah, this is also one of the letters I feel that could be designed by Apple. It's just extremely simple.
Oh, yeah.
Again, with the lowercase as well. And I mean, their fucking products are literally I this, I that. They like the letter too, to say the least. I'm a fan of these products and the letter as well. It is also part of my name, so this one's easy. That's a solid pro for me.
Next up, we have the double hitters with our two names.
I didn't even realize that until we got to it, which is kind of sad.
Somehow the order worked out. We didn't plan this, but the order worked out for each of us to do our own. So I'll kick it off with J, which I could go for J as for Jack, but I'll go with a thematic follow-up to my H and go with J as in Jesus Christ.
The J dog, you know what I mean? Can't go wrong with that. We always got the J dog looking under or looking down on us. J is it's a strong letter. I don't know that you know this, but I'm a fan of the letter J. I really like how it looks. It's almost like an I, just with like an extension of it. I know I mentioned earlier about like things getting lazy, but I didn't feel that way with this one. I feel like there's like a style to it. I also really like that you have the choice of whether you just want to do like, I guess the half U, or you could add the line on top of it, almost like a T. That's pretty dope.
I mean, almost like 3/4 U, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. You have the choice when you're doing lowercase to do like the 3/4 U with the dot on top. You know, that's kind of dope. Also like the sound that it makes. Again, yeah, I don't have many complaints about it. Like the solid pro.
Yeah, obviously I'm incredibly biased, but not everyone likes their name or the letter that starts their name, but I'm a fan of it. I feel like it's unique in a good way, and it's not really something that like punctuates another name or word or phrase. It's more so like its own thing and kind of demands the attention from that. So I feel like it works out in that way, you know, juice, jumping jacks, whatever. So when you combine that with the visual element, which I agree, I like the simplicity of it and the options, I'm going to lean into my bias and go with a, not heavy pro, but I'll give it a solid pro.
I mean, you know what's coming now. That strong hit, that letter K, as in King James, the greatest athlete to ever play any sport. That's right, Jordan. Letter J, interesting.
Wow. But always got to find a way to get shots in. But be careful though, because LeBron's real name, L, is coming up next. But I'll let you finish.
Oh, shit. This ain't planned, by the way. But yeah, the letter K, I would say it's for sure one of the more interesting looking letters in the alphabet.
Very sharp.
Extremely sharp. Nothing but sharpness. And it's odd. At least the capital version of it, where like it's a line with like a diagonal line, but then there's like another diagonal line down, but it's never like, they don't meet.
Well, they can. It depends how you do it.
They can. It's like a style thing, right?
I would say the symmetrical is arguably more used than the non. But yeah, it's almost like a line with an arrow going into it.
Right. Super biased, so take this with a grain of salt, but to me it's like one of the cooler looking letters.
Like you've been saying with the Apple design letter, I feel like this could be another one of those. At least for the uppercase.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's just like interesting to look at. I'll feel this way about another letter coming up later. Also, like one of the stronger sounds, like that hard K or C sound. However, I think it's more powerful than the letter C. Yeah,
I mean, like, it's literally used for king also.
Yeah, king. Like it's strong. And that's like its only sound. Fuck, no it doesn't. Because there's this thing that happens to the letter K when you put an N in front of it. You know, like the Knicks. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about it going silent when you put an N in front of it. That has to be one of the cons for the letter.
I would say yeah, but it also still looks cool when it's silent, you know what I mean? And it also, even in Knicks, it adds something where if it wasn't there, then it'd be like a bunch of people named Nick on the team.
Yeah, for real, that should be so funny. You imagine, like the Knicks. Wow. But yeah, we know how I feel about it. It's a solid pro.
The probably biggest con of all that we didn't mention is KKK. Once you add 3, then it becomes a massive con.
Yeah, sadly, it's a sad truth. But again, like, we see the things that happens when you just combine 3Ks, like something powerful and dark. It's the darkest arts. It's just too powerful. It could get scary.
Well, also, real quick, one more that I'll add on. Similar to G with money, K is like another thing for thousands. Like, you have 340K followers or whatever, so.
Or kilos, you know what I mean? It's drug talk. It gets dark again. It gets dark.
But yeah, I'll wrap it up with giving K a solid pro. Bordering on going to heavy, but I feel like it's just a solid letter in general, so I want to keep it there.
I mean, just remember every kiss begins with K, so we love too, you know?
Next up, we got L, as in lefty, which my mom, Linda, is.
I thought you were going to go with Limp Biscuit. But the letter L is also pretty strong. Like, I really like the capital letter. Super simple. Dope design. Hold this L.
Going through this, it's surprising almost how many letters stand on their own.
Yeah.
Like, I knew some, obviously, but it feels like more than I would have thought.
Right. Way more. I can agree with that. If I have a con, it's that a lowercase L is almost a capital I, and it could get confusing. Have you ever seen both on like text or on a computer? It's like, huh?
Right.
It's kind of weird. I don't know that I would like dislike it because of it, but it's for sure not a good thing. It's a design flaw. We talking about design on this episode. I don't know. I give it like a light pro.
Yeah, I feel like L is another one of those kind of sneaky ones where you don't really think about it much when it's used, but it is used a good amount, whether to start off, but more so to kind of help within a word. But it's also kind of lackluster not to use an L. But you mentioned being a fan of the uppercase design. I feel like it's kind of flat, and the lowercase is just terrible, even besides getting mixed up with the I. There's a difference between minimal and boring, and I feel like this goes to the boring side. So I'm going to let L hold this L and give it a light con.
Then we go into the letter M, as in Munchkin.
Wow.
This letter right here, design, A+. Talking about strictly symmetrical, almost perfect.
I mean, so much so that it even is used as its own kind of logo with like the Gmail M, you know?
Yeah, like I was actually going to say that myself. Like the letter M itself, no matter how you have it, could be like a logo for anything. I mean, Mickey D's, one of the strongest logos ever, like worldwide, literally.
On that too, I love that it can be both sharp or round, depending how you want to use it, which I don't know if any letter we've had so far is like versatile in the same way, where it doesn't really change the letter much, but it can make a difference depending on how you want to use it. So I feel like that's a big pro of it.
For sure. I completely agree with that. It's versatile.
And I'll throw this in too with the Apple designed letters.
Yeah, I'll throw that in there as well. Very little wrong with this one. It's an easy pro.
I feel like it combines the more solid common letters with the unique ones and finds like a nice balance. So I would probably go with a solid pro. And I was wondering if the example you were going to use in the last one was Manhattan, but I'll bring us over to N and say New York.
You don't miss. Letter N is cool. I feel like I use it a lot. Or, I mean, it's also part of the word no, which I feel it's frequently used. The N word, which is also like crucial, you know.
I don't think there's another letter used in that way of like blank word, or at least as common, you know what I mean?
Not at all. I mean, there's one, but in reality, like it doesn't even come close to how powerful like the use of like the N-word is.
Yeah, because it's almost like a thing of its own.
Yeah, like the C word. I hear that all the time. Like, oh, he used the C word against her, or, you know.
Right.
But again, like, nowhere near the N word. But I would say that that's maybe second. But
I mean, as far as the design perspective, I think the uppercase is nice. Uppercase is nice, has a nice symmetry. The lowercase, I feel like, is another one similar to L that's kind of just flat and boring. And it's also similar in a way to like a lowercase a vaguely, but I feel like N also is used a lot to end words or to give a certain sound.
yeah, good point. I mean, my name ends with the letter N, but I guess I'm just used to just saying Kev or
right,
like going by that. So I'm gonna go with neutral on this one.
I'll go with like a very light pro probably.
With that, we go to the letter O, as in olive oil.
Okay, got the double O in there.
You know, flexing with knowledge. Not really. Yeah, O.
And yet another one that can be used on its own. Oh.
It's a reaction, both positive, negative, confused. Oh. Technically, that's with like a H at the end, but it's the sound, it's the letter. Could be added. I think we're like at 5 or 6 of these letters now that could be designed by Apple.
Also another vowel.
It's another vowel, but didn't Apple design like their headquarters? It's a sphere or
as a circle, yeah.
O.
Well, this is also, speaking of that, like the only, well, I mean, I guess you could say I is like a straight line or a rectangle, so it could be compared to that. But I feel like O is the biggest example of a letter that is a shape. Like you think of O, like you think of a circle. And yeah, you could say maybe it's a circle with another circle inside it, depending on how you want to look at it. But either way, it's like a direct representation of a shape, which I feel like gives it major points.
Is this also the only letter that, as you say it, your mouth makes the shape?
Damn.
Yo.
That's next level
crazy.
thinking right there.
Oh, it's just flexing right now. Flexing on us. It looks the same. Upper or lowercase. It's a hoop. It's a sphere. It's a circle. It's a ball. Can't go wrong. Could be like my favorite letter. Not because of like anything other than just like its shape alone is such. It's planet Earth. You know what I mean? It's everywhere. It's a solid to heavy pro.
Yeah, I would just go ahead and give it a heavy pro. I feel like it's nothing really to con about it, and it just has so many things going for it that I wouldn't even give it in between. It just goes all the way to the top.
All right, yeah. Let me change it. Heavy pro.
Next up, we got P as in Pops, aka my dad, Paul.
Also, my pops, Pedro, you know what I mean? Peter, aka young Pedro. Shout out to him. However, letter P, I don't know how I feel about it.
P is weak. We could just say that. Like, yeah, it's a weak letter. Like, P is not winning any fights, you know?
This shit is low-key just an upside-down B, you know what I mean? Like, flip it and reverse it, like Missy Elliott said, and yeah, it's like a line sticking its tongue out at you. Lowercase kind of looks the same, just like the kid version to Lycon.
It's also like we were talking about earlier, when it's combined with H, it has that kind of F sound, PH. And it feels like in that case, I mean, kind of like I was arguing for H, but that it needs the helper of H. So it has like a unique sound that can be cool once in a while, but I'll probably go with like a very light con.
But let's move on to the letter Q, as in quinceañera.
Hey.
Had to bring a little Spanish in here again.
Yeah, you could also use quesadilla.
Ooh, strong. Okay. For sure, a letter I feel with way better use in the Spanish language. Like it's thrown out there a little bit more.
Do you think, though, that it could be replaced with like a K, or if C still exists, a C instead?
Yes, I think we may have found our second or third letter that we can cut out. You know, condense the alphabet.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably the most irrelevant and unnecessary letter.
It is also almost useless without the letter U after it.
Yeah.
Quick.
Quarter.
Are there words without U? I mean, I think QI is a word. I've used that in Scrabble before. I mean, shout out to this letter. 10 points in Scrabble. You want this. It's tied for the most points you can get.
Damn, that's a really good point. Like, without U, it loses any power it has, which is not much to begin with.
There's maybe like 5 words without the letter U. That's not good for this letter right here. Yeah, I don't know that I see many positives on this one. Make it lowercase. It's like a reverse P, right?
Yeah, I mean, like depending how you use it. But you could also argue that it's similar to your IJ comparison. True. But, I mean, I wouldn't put it positively. I think it's a weird letter.
Yeah, I just don't see many positives on this one. I'm going to go with a solid con.
It can be kind of used as another abbreviation one with question, although that's usually Q and A. So, again, it needs help. But, yeah, I don't know. This could be removed from the alphabet. No one would really notice or care, so it's quiet for Q. I'm going to give it a solid con.
Shout out to Questlove, though.
Next up, we got R, as in Rikers Island.
The scariest island of them all. So, like right now, I'm staring at the letter R. Shit is pretty much a P with an extra stick on it.
I mean, I feel like you could argue that makes the P stronger. You know what I mean? It gives it more weight, gives it more of a solid look to it. Whereas the P being kind of wimpy, the R gives it some edge.
True, I could see that. Just the sound of it, I think I like more, in Spanish too. The rolling R's, it's kind of strong. Not everyone can do it. It takes some skill and practice. It's kind of strong, It's like a cocky letter. And when you go lowercase, it's interesting because this is another one where people do it differently. Could look many different ways. It's a very different form than its uppercase use. I don't know how I feel about that. It could be a negative. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go with like a light pro.
Well, R could arguably be another letter used in itself, but only if you're a pirate, you know what I mean? I think the uppercase is so much better. The lowercase is another one I would say is flat and weak. The R, though, capital, is pretty powerful. Although you got the attachment with Republicans, which brings it down a lot. I feel like R is a letter that you think you use more than you do, where in reality it's more kind of like a occasional helper. So yeah, I feel like the more I talk about R, the more I realize it's not the best letter. So I'll probably go with like a light to solid con, which I don't know if I would have guessed beforehand, but here we are.
Let's move on to the letter S, as in Superman that hoe. Shout out to Soulja Boy.
Do you feel like S is almost like a slippery letter?
Very. The slipperiest of them all. If you could say that.
Which is weird because I feel like it's almost one of the most popular, but at the same time, it's kind of tricky in its own way.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of its use comes by making things plural.
Right.
So you would throw it at the end of words. I mean, there's plenty of words that start with the letter S. It's also another letter that you could be made fun of for not being able to use it, quote unquote, correctly or right. So people with a lisp, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's also, it doesn't have like a strong B kind of push to it. So again, the slippery kind of aspect of the S, I think, leads to that part with lisp, and even people without, I feel like it still is kind of a letter that can be messed up.
Yeah, I mean, the letter S is like, the use of it could take your breath away, because it's literally, most letters, like, and the sounds you make of letters come from like your voice and then you shaping your mouth and tongue to make the sound. But S is for sure the one that, like, you're like fucking Avatar The Last Airbender to make a sound with it, because it's technically like air, right? Like you have to create like a hole in your mouth.
Yeah,
or
you're
tongue.
like a snake.
Yeah, you're like, it's literally like shooting air to make the sound, which is why some people struggle with it. Like their tongue is like closed off or whatever, and they can't do it normally. So that's really interesting. Like this might be one of the letters where like it's literally purposely blowing air like in different ways to make different sounds with it. You kind of do that with every letter, but this one's like the one you use the most for it, which is kind of dope. Now I'm like thinking about it, and just like the science of the letter S is dope. For those reasons, I'm gonna have to go with a solid pro.
Interesting. I feel like I probably would have expected to give S at least a solid pro, but the more we talk about it and the more I think about it, I feel like that trickiness brings it down for me to a light pro, where it has a lot of great uses. I think it's a beautifully designed letter, great curves. Obviously, I'm also biased because my last name and favorite season starts with it. But the fact that it's a little more tricky, I think, makes it lose some of its power. But the plural aspect is a big pro to it. I just still think, I don't know, maybe light to solid pro.
It's for sure the letter that has like a lot of different uses and like tricks around it, which makes it cool in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, solid pro.
Next up, we go to T, as in the Bronx.
Hey, strong one right there.
I mean, just for the alone, it's got to be up there.
Yo, think about how many titles, college papers, books start and I mean the end is technically not the last letter. That would be a D, but like the starts it, you know, like the end.
And I feel like T in general is arguably the best starting letter, or at least the most common. Like it's used for so many things, and it has a really strong kind of starting sound to it. It can also be paired with a lot, whereas like Q, we were saying it was very limited to what it could be paired with. T, you got H, you got A, you got E, you got I. It can go on and on. Like it's very versatile in what it can work with, and it's very simple, but it does the trick. I feel like it's just one of the most solid letters, and that even goes to the design. It's kind of like I without the bottom part if you're doing the line with the lines on both top and bottom, but it still feels very sturdy, where it's like P you could see as like P without the R. The R is giving it more weight, but T, if you think of it as T without the, you know, extra line of the I, it still feels strong. So I think it works, and even in lowercase too, it's still pretty good. I feel like it's a heavy pro.
T for sure alone, like it's just good to start things with, like you said. I think it works for names the same way. I mean, you got Tyler the Creator. It's just strong, like it looks good to start with. Very symmetrical, which is crucial for me. I like symmetry. Can't go wrong. It's an easy pro for me.
And real quick, just to finish it off, I mean, you can use it like T as in t-shirt for this whole letter in itself thing that we're talking about. And yeah, like Tyler the Creator also just uses T sometimes, so
hey,
works in
golf,
that way
bro,
too.
It's the tea or tea up. Tea
that's
time.
true. Yeah.
The drink tea. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. Technical foul.
Let's move on to the letter U, as in uvula.
Okay, I did not see that one coming.
What is a uvula?
I don't know.
Sounds like an organ.
Where'd that even come from?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that came about. At this point, I'm pretty tired, and it's just one of those words where like it just sounds almost like the letter, you know, like uvula. I don't know. Came out, but yeah, the letter U. It's the last vowel we have left.
And maybe the weakest? I don't know, like you do use it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, in the same list that I talked about earlier about the most used, U is the least used vowel for sure. So yeah, I mean, you have a point there when it comes to like it being the weakest.
It's also weird with the letter thing that we've been talking about, because you can say you using the text message version of the letter without spelling it out. It could still work in that way.
It's one of the ones where, just like I, where you use often when you refer to yourself, you can use you when you're talking to someone else, which gives it a point, at least in my case. Not mad at how it looks in design. See it a lot when driving, no U-turns, U-turn here, U-turn allowed.
I just realized also you could use it too as like university. It is very like boring almost, but I also don't want to necessarily con it because of that. I feel like it serves its purpose more than certain others on this list. So I'm going to go with like a very light to light pro. It's not amazing, but it's efficient, so I think it works in its own way.
Yeah, it's almost like a Scottie Pippen, right? You're just like second to Jordan, and that's how I feel about the letter. Letter Q is nothing without you. Just like Jordan was nothing without Scottie, But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm gonna go neutral with it.
All right, next up we go to V, as in vampire.
Damn, I thought you were gonna go with Viola Davis, bro. One of the strong black actresses of our time.
That's true. Shout out to her.
But instead you go with vampire, as in Twilight, one of the weakest movies of our time.
Hey, I mean, I just think of V as like a visual representation of vampires. I feel like I almost think of the letter whenever I think of like a cartoon version of a vampire.
I'm pretty sure there's also like one of those weird like film studies out there where like the triangle shape that comes with the letter V is often used as evil.
Well, like villain is another V word.
Exactly. Like the villains or the evil person in a film, cartoon, whatever, often has like a triangular pointy face. I don't know what it is about it, but I guess humans tend to be a little afraid of that, so it works. Also, the fangs, V-shaped, kinda. But the letter V, for sure, one of those that I don't use often at all. I mean, the last stretch of letters in the alphabet are that way. It's also like the sharp version of a U.
That's true. And they follow each other, so it's like, what's the deal with that?
Again, whoever was designing these was like, oh, I did this one round. Oh, let's follow it up sharp. Okay. M, 2 arches. N, let's do only 1 arch. P, I don't know. Let's do like a B and take off the bottom. Okay. Q. Let's do the O again, but add a line. It's like one of those things where like, I mean, we haven't even gotten to W. It's pretty much 2 V's. And yeah, to say it, you have to say the word double. U. But the U is round. The V is sharper. It's funny, in Spanish, you actually call it W, which is W2, but I've also heard people call it W, which means double V. Like, I don't think it's wrong to say it that way. Like, it's not slang or anything. It's probably in the dictionary in the same way.
I mean, you could also call W upside down M too.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's there, but I wasn't even thinking of that too, to add on top of that.
Damn.
So yeah, maybe I'll give the grades to both of these together. U, V, and W, V, U. Because they're almost interchangeable in a way. I don't know. So to V, I don't know, light pro. W, I'd go like a light pro, but a little higher than V for some reason, even though it is just 2 V's. But yeah, I'll let you go.
Well, I think for V, I don't know, it's like too sharp almost. It also seems kind of pointless at the same time. And I just don't really like it in general, even though it is symmetrical. Basically, it's the same upper and lowercase, but I'm going to go with like a solid con for V. And for W, I definitely like the look of it better. Like I said, I like M, and it's similar, just upside down, so I can't hate on it there. And the sound of it is kind of interesting too. It is kind of rarely used, but I feel like it does, kind of like M, it does have a unique sound, I think, in a positive way. So I'm going to go with like a very light to light pro for W.
I could see that.
And I think also kind of like what you were saying with V and W being like extensions of other letters and all this stuff. I think we're at this point where we've been doing these individually the whole episode, and I think our original question is, yes, the alphabet is way too long. And with that being said, let's end this with how usually the alphabet is repeated at the end, which is XYZ. So let's just group them together. And I'm going to quickly go through. X, most unnecessary letter in the whole alphabet. Major con. Like, just why is it there? Cool symmetry, but that's it. Y, again, you could say, why is Y there? It has its use, but I'll probably go with a neutral on Y. And then Z, maybe as unnecessary as X. It is kind of a nice ending letter to the alphabet, but again, it could vanish tomorrow and no one would care, really. So I kind of like how it looks, but at the same time, yeah, just not necessary. So light con.
Yeah, I mean, these last three are just something else.
They were like, fuck it, let's throw 3 more on, you know?
Somehow these letters have a stronger use in math than they do in the English language. I mean, yeah, the letter X is in every math equation almost. Strong look. I mean, one of my favorite looking letters, to be honest. Stands alone. It's easy to do. You could throw it up with your arms. Shout out to the PX.
That is